We start tonight with the abortion debate, thrust back into the national spotlight after a ruling from a federal judge in Texas. It essentially reverses FDA approval for the first of a two-drug regimen that's been used for about half of abortions in this country. The judge stayed his ruling for 7 days to give the Biden administration time to appeal, so mifepristone remains legal for now. There is a lot to unpack here, and I want to start with what's happening specifically in New York. In reaction to the ruling, Governor Kathy Hochul is putting a bill before the legislature today regarding the second of that two-drug regimen. She says she wants to make sure it's available to women in New York should the Texas ruling stand.
I think they're going to be coming after the secondary drug, misoprostol, which is something that is used for ulcers, and I can see them now challenging this. And this is not as effective as the drug they overruled yesterday, but it's one that in New York, we want to make sure that that's available. So I have legislation that's going to the legislature Monday, and we'll be talking about requiring insurance companies to cover this as a drug that's used for abortion. So we're trying to figure out all the different ways we can get ahead of this.
The U.S. Justice Department has already asked the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals to reverse the Texas judge's injunction, filing new paperwork just today. Also, an attorney for the company that distributes mifepristone said that if the Fifth Circuit doesn't block the ruling, the company will likely ask the U.S. Supreme Court to intervene. Here's the White House press secretary from just a short time ago.
We were prepared for this outcome, and as you all saw, the Department of Justice appealed the court's decision. This administration stands by the FDA and is prepared for this legal fight, and we will continue our work to protect reproductive rights to ensure that women can make their own decisions about their own bodies without government interfering.
Joining us live now is Paul Cambria, attorney and Two on Your Side legal analyst. So Paul, appreciate you coming in on this. A lot of moving parts going on here. We do know that this drug has been approved for some 2 decades.
Correct.
Pretty much everyone in the medical field says it's been tested for so long, it's incredibly safe. You have this one federal judge in Texas issuing this ruling to block it. The Fifth Circuit is where it goes now. I'm told that's a very conservative circuit. What do you expect is going to happen there, and what to make of this temporarily on hold? We have, 4 days to work this out, I guess.
Right. Well, the Fifth Circuit can either stay the district court's decision, and then it would be back to, square one, or they can agree with that judge. If they do, then they can go to the Supreme Court and try to get a stay there. Stay meaning stop the interference with the approval.
So I want to ask you about the Supreme Court in a minute, but first, you've probably seen the coverage this weekend. There are some progressives, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez among them, suggesting that the FDA should just ignore this judge's ruling. Listen to what the Secretary of Health and Human Services said this weekend.
The scientific judgments of the medical experts and those who did all the clinical research is now being questioned, second-guessed by one judge in one state in one court.
Are you taking it off the table that you will recommend the FDA ignore a ban?
Everything is on the table.
Everything is on the table is the answer, as we heard there. What would happen if the federal government said, we're just going to ignore this Texas judge's ruling? And I guess part of all this is that you had a separate ruling in a separate case out in Washington that applies to more than a dozen states where a judge kind of found the opposite when it comes to this drug. I mean, it is confusing, but it's troubling when you hear just ignoring a judge's ruling. I mean, what's going to happen with that?
Yeah, they can't do that because they could be held in contempt if they just ignore his ruling. They have a process. They go to the Fifth Circuit. Fifth Circuit doesn't give them what they want. They go to the Supreme Court. As far as the other case, the 17 plaintiffs in there, they're good to go. They say, we were parties to this. Court said it was okay. We're going to use the drug.
There's been a lot of discussion about the precedent that this Texas judge's ruling sets because a federal judge apparently in all of our history has never overturned FDA approval of a drug. And you think of all the medications that have been approved. This is something that's never happened. As you read through the Texas judge's ruling and as you look forward to how this is going to play out, does the precedent question concern you that this is something we could see happen again and it's the FDA that supposedly has the expertise here?
Well, not at this point. If it goes to the Fifth Circuit and they agree with him, or if it goes to the Supreme Court, remember we have a conservative Supreme Court that overturned Roe versus Wade. If that happened, then you would have all these various drugs and so on being reviewed by, non-medical people, and that really would be chaotic.
But just with this one federal judge now, it doesn't really set the precedent that would
Not yet.
to make you think that's a big concern.
Not yet.
Yeah. You mentioned the Supreme Court. This is the conservative court that overruled Roe. But there are a lot of legal experts on all sides of the abortion issue who are pretty critical of what the Texas judge has done here, saying he's being activist. He obviously has a history of being against abortion. It seems like this is a case that's very different from Roe v. Wade. How do you see the Supreme Court looking at this case?
See, this is different because that backs into the last point you just made, and that is, are they second guessing the FDA now? And how much power does the Supreme Court want to give to judges to do that? So I see that a little differently, and I could see conservative judges saying, wait a minute, we're not going to interfere with science. We're going to go forward. We're not going to politicize this. So I think even those conservative judges would find that it was proper to authorize this, and they shouldn't interfere with it.
So as we look toward the what comes next part of this, again, the judge stayed his own order for a week, right? To say,
till the 14th.
Give the government time to appeal. The government has done that. Do you expect that the Fifth Circuit, are they reviewing this case right now, or will they over the next couple of days? And how quickly do we get a ruling?
I think absolutely the Fifth Circuit is, and the fact that Washington has a federal judge going one way and Texas has the other way, that's a perfect formula to go to the Supreme Court.
And to go
I think it's going up, and there'll be a single judge in the Supreme Court who can put a stay in place till the Supreme Court gets the chance to review it.
That's every Supreme Court justice has a circuit that they're over.
Correct.
Right? And whoever is over this one would determine if
exactly.
they're to temporarily
Yes.
block it. Finally, we've gotten a ton of statements. All politicians are weighing in on this, as you would expect. Just within the past maybe 10 or 15 minutes, the Attorney General here in New York announced, I guess she's filed an amicus brief with the Fifth Circuit. What does that mean, and how is New York trying to inject into this?
Well, I think New York has come out very pro-abortion in the sense of making it available. And right now, remember, they can still do surgical abortions. This doesn't affect that. It's just the drug. There is an alternative drug. They can use that. So it really doesn't affect the actual opportunity to have abortions. And again, this is the political aspect of it as well. We're seeing with these amicus briefs, you're going to see conservatives with an amicus brief against it and liberals with a brief for it, and the process will play out.
We'll be following it very closely. Paul Cambria is an attorney and Two on Your Side legal analyst. Paul, thank you for helping us understand a complicated one here. We appreciate it.